Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. I hope you are good. We're going to talk about Cardano, Vechain and Crypto.com. There's a few little things to talk about on this one. So welcome. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, hit the bell button, like, comment, a few things. So let's talk about Cardano first. Reason being, there's quite a few little topics I want to talk about in terms of different element of coins and mainstream stuff, and also centralized versus decentralization. It's kind of important you understand this. So I'm on a new setup. It's a bit weird, getting used to it finally, but in terms of all this, in terms of video publishing, I am going to be putting a little bit more effort into my videos. Probably not this one, but mainly coming up in the future, I'm going to be putting a little bit of extra footage in certain things to make things look a little bit better. So it does look nicer. And here we go. Cardano plans an ERC-20 converter and cross-chain communication. This is kind of key in terms of making things nice and simple. Now, one of the things about this is it will launch a converter that will allow, migration of ERC-20s from the Ethereum network to ERC, from the ERC-20 side of it, in terms of that into the Cardano network. That is massively important. Now, it's a bit of a mind-boggling thing when you think about conversion of coins, but ERC-20 in itself is by far one of the most simple to get, use, transfer around. So having it cross-chain compatible, or cross-chain communication essentially, into the new technically gifted Cardano blockchain for the future is pretty key. And this news actually didn't react at all. Probably when it goes live, it most likely will. But for me, fundamentals wise, it's another tick in the box for me in terms of allowing it to communicate with other well-known and established blockchains, such as the Ethereum one. So furthermore, the interoperability will allow blockchains like Ethereum, spelling mistake, and Litecoin should be extended, that the transactions from Litecoin can also be executed on the Cardano blockchain. That is very, very important for just use case in itself, in terms of the speed and the processing power that the Cardano blockchain will have will allow things to speed up in other networks, allow it to just flip over and use that chain. You see it on other cryptocurrencies anyways as it stands right now, but to have Cardano in that pegging essentially for the ability for the future to grow, speed, scalability is kind of one of the big buzzy words at the moment, which is kind of key. So that is that. Very, very simple. In terms of that, other things to mention, obviously hard fork on 29th of July here, and obviously on the 18th of August, we're looking for staking pool operators. So a lot of things happening. Currently, I'm out of position on my trading account on Cardano. I do think there's going to be a retracement at some point. We've had a massive move. Not all news reacts. Obviously, buy the rumor, sell the news. Always remember that. Moving on into the world of KNC. I mentioned and spoke about KNC at length the other day. A little bit of an introduction to it. It's a one that I'm looking to accumulate. But in terms of Crypto.com, by far, in my opinion, I know there's a bit of thing going on about it in terms of the Wirecard issues, but I personally rate it, again, like anything, an exchange is only designed to be a place of purchase. Please just remember that the pitfalls of holding on said environments for long periods of times, especially if you cannot spend your money. We've seen with the Wirecard third-party things, and we're going to come on in this video about third-party in a second, because it's vitally important you stick around and you see this, and I want to give you my thoughts on it. In terms of all this, KNC, very, very good asset to buy into, in my opinion. Not financial advice, obviously. I rate it for DeFi. I think that's probably one of the leading products for that as it stands in terms of interoperability, scalability, in terms of the use case of it. It's freaking huge in terms of what they've got in terms of reserves, usage of different wallets, and obviously most importantly exchanges and swaps, which is obviously key. So yeah, if you are onto the Crypto.com sort of stuff, link below, by the way, use tag Crypto Mobster, you get $50 for free if you get the better cards. But ultimately, if you are just looking to get involved in this, you stake a bit of Crow token and you get given some free stuff. That happens tomorrow. Now, mainstream, let's talk about, I mentioned it before, Vechain. Australian TV references Vechain in mainstream show, receives extensive media coverage on a popular TV program in Australia, basically to do with food fraud. Basically on the Sunrise program, about Fresh Supply Company. It's basically to improve, obviously, the supply chain in that region. And if you've ever been to Australia and stuff like that, they're very, very, picky with what they allow in their country and what they don't allow, which is obviously very, very key. I remember going there when I was in my military career, and it was a bit of a ball ache getting through all that kind of stuff. Even though I was on a military aircraft, it was a very, very different experience that I've ever experienced from that country. First time I've ever been into other countries where they don't really care, whereas in Australia they definitely do. In terms of all this, how Vechain essentially works is a supply chain which allows you the tracking of food, objects, medicines, whatever, and it shows the life cycle of it. With food, it's vitally important that we track temperature, we track certain things that goes into food to allow it to go into certain countries, but most importantly, is it safe, is it consumable, is it good to eat? And obviously this food fraud is a big thing. Fraud in itself overall is quite a big thing. Clothing fraud, computer technology, whatever, but food as well. You can fake food essentially. So it's very, very important that people know this. So yep, mentioned on the food fraud special on the Sunrise program, Vechain, which is obviously good, and their main protocol is obviously to enhance and make things better, and to remove and eliminate food fraud, all kinds of other fraud in terms of counterfeit goods, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry that needs sorting out. So on to the last part, and I want to talk about this in a little bit more length regarding Cloudflare. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is about decentralization and centralization. The biggest problem that we've got, and I'll be honest with you, not everything's centralized, not everything's decentralized. It's about finding what is what. The biggest problem we've got is majority of stuff is centralized, like anything. We cannot, as an entity, go totally off the grid and be totally off the radar. At the end of the day, we're on the internet. That's obviously centralized, but there's certain ways that it's decentralization to make it apparent. Now, Cloudflare is a huge network that allows multiple servers and run-ins and DNS to run essentially on a server around the world to allow speed. It passes data around. It's kind of decentralized in a way, the way it works with its data hubs, but when it goes down, you lose a lot of information, you lose a lot of data, and you lose, obviously, uptime, which is key. So DNS is domain name system. Basically, those DNSs, it's like code, you put it in and you hook it up. And like, if you're in Australia, your closest data center will be around the Australia area. If you're in America, whatever. If you're obviously in Australia and you're trying to get into a DNS server that's in Iceland, it's going to take a bit of time. Your page loads will be slow. Now, that is the same thing with this. When it goes down though, we have problems. Obviously a lot of blockchain, a lot of companies use and rely on the likes of Cloudflare and the alternative, which is the Amazon servers, which is obviously key. Now, problem with this, as I've said, if this goes down, the blockchain explorers go down. What happens if the internet goes down? Cryptocurrency in some ways, I don't know the exact numbers, is pretty much buggered because most of the transactions are done via the internet, which is kind of interesting. They're done via all these. If you cannot access a page, you can't send your transaction, essentially. Certainly on majority of the stuff that we do. When we use an exchange, when we're using likes of Binance, OKX, whatever, we've got problems there. So this asks a question here, decentralization. What do we do about it? So there has to be, in my opinion, a solution to this problem. What happens when things get really big? And this is mainly a question sort of thing. Let me know if you have any opinions on it. If there's in the world of cryptocurrency, when things get big, scams appear, attacks appear. Obviously, we've seen the Twitter hack. What about if there's a lot of attacks on server points, hubs? The use case of cryptocurrency then becomes a little bit more different and a bit difficult. So what do? There has to be a way that no matter what, there's a decentralized side of the world of allowing the uptime, essentially the DNS side of it, has to always run. Now, I don't know how this is going to be tackled because a lot of the infrastructure in cryptocurrency is done online. There's no decentralized hub yet to allow things to fully function at 100% operability, essentially, without worrying about other third parties. And that's where the problem lies, third party. I myself rely on third party. I think majority of cryptocurrency do. They rely on other people, they rely on other products, they rely on other services to allow things to happen. The biggest problem is when that comes difficult, we've got problems. So that is today's video, signed, sealed and delivered. I hope you have a good one. I do feel that there is little changes in the market, especially in the traditional markets, that could lead to issues with the cryptocurrency space. So yeah, regulation, great fun. But stuff like this, we need to protect ourselves, in my opinion. Videos up here, check them out. See you later.